Cobra Kai, it's finally here, and I could not be happier because it's good.
Yeah.
And not, in fact, really good. Like this, I mean, everybody, like this is that one time that, okay, this franchise trying to get this last hurrah and purists going, oh yeah, this is gonna blow away all those other offshoots. Finally, we're gonna have the real continuation. This time they're right. It is that good, and heck yeah. And first, the thing that made me happiest of all starting out is that it does not go the route of trying to validate the dickhead contrarian. Daniel is the real bully. Yeah, this is gonna, I hope this show shows everyone that. I mean, that was cute for a while, the edited ending, so Johnny wins the original Karate Kid fight, the Daniel is the real bully video, which can be kindly taken as a gag video. I mean, it was cute for a while, but when you have people like writing articles saying that, oh yeah, your sympathies should shift towards Johnny as you get older, or just, yeah, flooded comment sections about how much everybody hates Daniel, like everybody is nostalgic for the Karate Kid, but at the same time, they apparently hate what it stood for, what it was trying to do. I'm like, okay, please, please, please don't validate that. And they don't. It was exactly what I was hoping and thinking it was going to be from the descriptions and stuff. Both Daniel and Johnny have stuff they need to work on sort of in their own way, and they do, they do sort of prompt each other to step it up and, you know, work on stuff and get better, and yeah, thank goodness. And I mean, Johnny does have a lot of his moments where, okay, his side of the story is kind of what those contrarians say, like, oh yeah, Daniel, he moved in on my girl, he sucker punched me, yeah, leaving out all of this, and yeah, like, and there is no excuse, there is no, okay, well, we can just kind of leave that out because it's kind of irrelevant. No, the stuff that Johnny did that he was supposed to be the villain for, that's all that's relevant. I'm sorry, but, like, okay, the whole, oh, well, Daniel should have minded his own business when he was when Johnny was pushing Allie around and destroying her radio, and yeah, up yours. People have gotten killed because of everybody deciding to mind their own business in scenarios like that, so no. But still, like, I mean, even though, okay, the Cobras are the bad guys, like, even nice guy Bobby in that movie is in the wrong. He's condoning people teaming up, assaulting, harassing this kid. They're in the wrong. Daniel is in the right. He's not the bully. He's a flawed and hot-headed but sincere and decent kid trying to just, like, hold his own in the world. That's just how it is, and I mean, almost surprised this, of all things, is what people latched onto as contrarians, because, yeah, the Cobras are in some ways over-the-top 80s villains, but that said, it is still kind of cool how, yeah, it is still kind of cool how they all kind of have their own personalities, and you kind of latch on to who's who, and, like, they, in their own ways, they feel like people, you know. That's also fun to get behind, and that is so what this show latches on to, and oh, it is absolutely great. And just like from episode to episode, it's like they really do kind of have this plan going that takes hold of you over time. But I'm doing all the talking here. My colleague
is listening, yeah.
Yeah, who technically has experience in a martial art closer to karate than the one I practice.
I won't say that. Like, I think like the thing like Daniel has going on is more like Tai Chi, and of course the karate is more like Taekwondo, just with your hands. So yeah. I mean, I'm not like super experienced. I don't know a whole lot about karate. I do know how like, one, it's everybody's go-to example of a martial art that doesn't help nearly as much as everyone thinks it does, and that the reason that karate enthusiasts, or at least like experts generally, put forth, is that because we, like, the marketability that it picked up has caused an abridged version of it to catch on an incomplete version. Yes, yeah, and I also feel like it's more aggressive than it actually should have been original. So, like, I think, like, commercialized sorry if I'm wrong with this, but I see like karate as you know, angry sport, or how to say that, where taekwondo and tai chi is more like, you know, the calm ones, or like taekwondo can be aggressive as well, but in an over way.
Well, I mean, partly it depends on how you apply it. I mean, I think just more than anything, I think the holes people find is that it's incomplete. Like, I mean, I hang out with wrestlers and you know, Tai Chi enthusiasts, and I've heard people telling me stories about how they got into fights and they tried to use karate and got flipped onto their back, and then they fought their way out by using more like boxing and wrestling together. Because I mean, karate, because like karate, as they learned to apply it, was just like do a counter and do one strike. And that said, though, I mean, the kind of stuff that you see them do in the show, and maybe less so in the original Karate Kid, although granted the original Karate Kid scales it down enough so that it does see a little more real. Like this stuff, on one hand, when Johnny gets into that fight at the beginning, the kind of stuff he's doing, you know, you can see how, okay, that's where, like, this kind of stuff, if karate incorporates all of this, flips and throws and all of the above, and that, okay, you need to make sure you're hitting everybody as they come in, or you'll get tackled, as Johnny does. Okay, you can see how that would work, but I mean, on the other hand, in the fights that are actually supposed to be the show stealers, the big events that it all comes down to, it's still way too neat. I mean, like, I've been to martial arts tournaments going into the double digits by now. Nobody is doing all of these flips and all of these perfect blocks exactly, like, to the point.
I've seen stuff like that in real life.
Well, I mean, like, you might get, you know, like, one good exchange, like, one good round where it goes into this just exchange where, like, they're somehow they, like, collide dead evenly, blocking each other's hits, and having to really work for it. But I mean, you know, usually, you know, just like how sword fighting is never how it is in the movies. It's whoever can, if it's a first point scores, then it's just whoever judges it better going in, sort of a thing. Or, I mean, like, excessively fancy moves like the flips and stuff, those are almost always, like,
I'm sorry to say, but I actually feel like in the series it becomes more real. The movies is a little bit too much, but the series actually makes it look almost like real karate matches.
Yeah, but like, you know what I'm saying, though, the kicks are always a little too perfect, and the blocks are always like a little too perfect. Yeah. I mean, like, the fanciest match I've ever seen, this kid who was like, who thought he was all everything, like, like stomping at the other guy, and then, like, because he knew that he could do all of these really flashy kicks, like he would do a straight kick and then follow it up right away with a spin kick or a wheel kick or something. Like, he could put those together like that. He got his ass kicked. Because the thing is, like, as fancy as he could get with that, you know, his focus wasn't at least as much on the other guy, as much as the other guy, on what it should be. On, like, the solid basics, the solid stance, the actual connection, and not just pouring it on the other guy as fancifully and extensively as possible. Like, the other guy, the fanciest thing he did the whole match was a Superman punch, and he floored the kid with it. And I mean, in fact, this guy, he wasn't even able to do his fancy kicks. Like, he tried an up kick and fell down, but every time, like, almost all of the flashy kicks missed. And meanwhile, the other guy, he, like, the one kick he did land took him off his feet with that. The Superman punch knocked him back. He threw the kid down. He battered him into the corner. Yes. I mean, like, and you know, there was some rough exchanges at first, and, like, the flashy kid, you know, he almost showed what he could have done if he had put it together. Like, his punches were kind of neater, but, you know, he wasn't able to insist on them as much. When, like, push came to shove, it got down to grittiness, he got overpowered, and that's more how this stuff works, I think. But
Yeah.
Anyway.
I was like also really thankful. Like now we got the Karate Kid that we wanted all of this time. I'm sorry for the fans out there for the movies, but like this, the series is just so much better.
So, I mean, so. Okay, I don't think anybody's gonna fight you on Karate Kid 2, 3, or next Karate Kid there.
Maybe
I don't think they're gonna fight you on the remake. But yeah, Karate Kid 1 is, I mean, it's an 80s classic.
Of course, it's a 80s classic and it's hard to beat. But I actually think like with the episode, and I will come to that later because now we're going into deeper things. But I actually think like it can beat, you know, the movie if it continues in this sort of lane. Yeah. And we know that it's going to come soon again, so yeah, I can't wait.
I was so happy to see that because I mean, okay, so like we're going to get into just spoilers soon. You can't talk. There's only so much you can talk about this series without talking about what happens. But yeah, you so want season 2 when this series is over, and it's happening. It's been renewed. Yes.
We want that. So what did you want it to say?
And I mean, and actually, the show does have a higher tomato meter score than if you like Rotten Tomatoes, which I do, than the original Karate Kid. Yeah, 100% to 80-some%. But I mean, you know, people like in coming to terms with the fact that the 80s Karate Kid has 80s cheese in it, people do, I think, start to overlook what it does. I mean,
the series has 80s cheese as well.
Yeah, this series has, well, not only, it has a lot of nostalgic touches. You know, you could tell it legit respects the original movies, which, again, I was afraid it wasn't going to. I was afraid it was going to be too transgressive, and actually, one of the problems I think about the show is that, like, it in some ways it maybe hates the 21st century a little too much for its own good.
I think it's nice. Yeah.
Well, we can get to that in a minute.
We can get to our small gripes.
But yeah,
later
original Karate Kid. I mean, it is one of the better father-son stories I think you're going to come across. I think that both Daniel and Mr. Miyagi in that movie feel like, real characters with some real baggage they're carrying, and you know.
And I will admit, you have to watch the original Karate Kid 1 for before you watch this.
Yeah, this is a true sequel.
It is a sequel.
I mean, granted, it throws enough flashbacks, even like footage from the original Karate Kid in there, so that maybe you don't necessarily need to, but it definitely helps.
It's
like
definitely
this show
helps,
is, like if you're a fan of the original Karate Kid, this show is for you.
Yeah.
Completely. Otherwise, I mean, you know. And it's a good enough show so that, I mean, I think it
will actually make you want to see the Karate Kid. If you haven't watched the original Karate Kid, you would be like, oh, maybe I would, you know, watch it. Yeah. I wouldn't recommend 2 or 3, I'm sorry, but yeah.
I might recommend 2. I mean, 2 gets a lot of backlash, and I mean, maybe it does deserve some of it, and actually 2 is the one I think, like, everything outside of Karate Kid 2 references the least. Like, every sequel, everything cares most about what happens in the first 5 minutes with Kreese strangling Johnny than it does about what actually happens in the rest of the movie, like, including the show. We get references to the fact that Daniel has been out of the country, that he's been to Okinawa, and that he's maybe picked up some stuff he's fond of there. That's as far as they go in referencing Karate Kid 2, outside of the bit with Kreese and Johnny, which was originally supposed to be in Karate Kid 1. So, yeah, which is why that ties into Karate Kid 1 a lot more than the rest of the set. Although, heck, I would have rather them continued down the direction Karate Kid 2 started than, recycle the first movie like in Karate Kid 3.
This, yeah. But you had more.
Karate Kid 2, I'm gonna say, is still where it gets the most serious, like, as far as fighting for your life and all that. But this show does get us in that direction too. Like,
as I said,
a kid has to fight off a couple of thugs who are, like, legit trying to, mess him up, maybe worse for not helping in their, helping them rob a place. Johnny gets maced and taken down by the police at one point for a fight he's in. Oh, and actually even worse, like, we get somebody burning his car and hiring thugs to bash him up with baseball bats, and he has to fight his way through that.
Yeah, and there's also a scene where Michael, he's getting beat up by the bullies with a...
Oh yeah, our new... Well, I guess you could argue who the new Karate Kid is in this movie, but that's another thing this series does kind of well. Like, we see, like in both of these scenarios, the kid versus thugs, kid versus 4 bullies at once. Okay, yeah, we see, okay, they've learned karate, they can fight now, but they lose. Like, just learning some karate, okay, there's still a process before you're that good, and like, although, it's, one of those fights is only mixed results. One is, the kid versus bully, one spoiler, is, he gets the living hell kicked out of him.
Yeah.
Like, he lands one kick, and I mean, that might have been the way to go if, he might have been okay if it was just him versus that bully, but then they all swarm him and drag him into a back room and beat him till he can't stand up and needs Johnny to carry him home in his arms. And Johnny is so shaken up that this is the first thing that happens as a result of him training the kid that he's ready to close his dojo. Like, you do, I mean, because, like I said, you feel, okay, time to start talking about these characters now, Johnny and Daniel, you feel for both of them. They both have their flaws, though, but, I mean, like I said, it's a mix of both. Like, neither one is entirely the hero or the villain for a while. But, Johnny, at first, you are, I mean, in spite of the fact that, okay, he's still a dickhead, he's still not very well adjusted socially, I mean, like, at the end of the original Karate Kid, did anybody think, like, Johnny would not be fine? Like, he's still rich, he's still a pretty boy, he can still beat the hell out of anyone not named Daniel in the valley.
How it was, though.
Yeah, so, okay, you think he's gonna be fine, and now it's like, okay, all these years later, he's apparently let this past define every moment of his life. And I mean, like, he's still hung up on Allie, he's still, Elizabeth Shue's character from the first movie, that is. He still can't even look at Daniel or all his ads for this car dealership that Daniel owns now that are everywhere. He, like...
He doesn't have a real father.
Yeah, well, okay, well, I mean, getting to that. But yeah, he's still thinking about all the things he used to do and thinking about that, and that's what he misses. Those are his glory days. And okay, we kind of see that, all right, I mean... Even realistically, even though Johnny, okay, he hands the trophy over and says, you're all right, LaRusso, good match, like, okay, that's where the movie, like, plants its feet, like, okay, no, this kid, he's not the problem. It is the teacher, not the student. He is redeemable, and I mean, granted, what he does in the movie is, I still say not forgivable, and I don't think anybody should. That is way far across the line. But I mean, okay, I guess what they were going for there is, okay, somebody else could have maybe taken him in a better direction, and, he does have it in him. And, okay, this movie reveals that, okay, with Kreese out of the picture, somebody else isn't going to come along. What Johnny has is a stepdad who is willing to pay his bills and tell him what a screw-up he is and how, like, worthless he is for it after.
But there's also an episode where he comes and pays him back and was like, this is the only thing you can give me. And like, it was, like, really, really good.
I know, like, this movie so gets you behind Johnny, because, like, okay, the reason he restarts Cobra Kai in the first place, I mean, they have that moment from the trailer, sure, where, okay, he saves the kid, Miguel, and he was like, oh, could you train me? And Johnny says no. Like, yeah, forget it. Piss off. The only good thing about living here is I don't have to talk to anybody. But, he starts to, like, I mean, all of as usual, the point we enter is the point where some of the stuff, like getting into a fight, starts to jar his memories a little, and he thinks about what he hadn't had before, and, like, how he was maybe proud of, what this power he worked to have, and how he's okay. I can still fight. Like, and he sees this old movie, like, giving the speech about the power you have in you, and they try to take it away, and okay, and that's what he's going for. He's trying to find something he can be proud of again, and I mean, and you do kind of start to feel for him, especially since, okay, the route they go with the kids he starts to take in is. They're nerds. They're and this is where I think the show hating the 21st century a little too much.
No. I think
like it's
no. I think it's actually right on the spot
yeah,
about
well, I mean,
how
it's like
children are doing now.
I don't. Yeah. Well, I mean, okay. Like on one hand, you know what they do with Johnny is very much like the mirror image of what they do with Daniel, and we'll get to that. But yeah, like Johnny, okay, he is really tough on these nerds who are used to sort of shying away from stuff, who are used to the notion that, okay, life is going to hit you and you can't do anything about it. It's
giving
like
them tough love, yeah.
Well, but like bringing them into balance. Like, okay, like Daniel is at the other end of the pond, and we see how, okay, there's a time for his approach too, very much. But like Daniel, as much as the contrarians get on Daniel for being a pussy in the first movie, I mean, this show, like, yeah, for points of comparison will make you realize that he really wasn't. I mean, like, Daniel's reason for being a pussy in that movie is he can't beat a black belt who he willingly got off pulled himself out of the sand and tried to fight until he couldn't stand up anymore. Like, okay, these kids are not willing to fight anyone at all. They run from fights, and this kid, like the reason Miguel is like the one to sort of spearhead Cobra Kai being restarted is, okay, he's at least willing to try. He does see as he phrases it, the greatness in what Johnny does and what he's able to do, and the fact that Johnny like beats him down and says like, you know, I expect you to do this, and then like and when the kid actually does it, like, yes, you did it, you can do that. You pulled off a miracle. It's like that. Okay, yeah, you know, like, okay. I mean, that kind of in that sense, the word positive reinforcement, like, okay, pour a ton of negative stuff on you, tell them to deal with it, and when they do, like, holy heck, look at what you just did. Like,
yeah.
I mean, that, you know, sometimes there's a time for that too, and I mean, and you do, okay, and at least that aspect of the Cobra Kai thing you do sort of get into, and they don't even play it like, is that, okay, Johnny has all the answers, and okay, this is just awesome, and okay, that like there is a scene where more people start to join, and as Johnny's doing nothing but driving them away, Miguel's like, okay, you know I respect you, but you don't know what it's like to be us, and then Johnny has to pull back to when he first joined the Cobra Kai. They hire new actors to play that out. When Johnny first decided he wanted to join the Cobras, little 11-year-old Johnny riding around on his bike, you know, he had to flash back to how he was a little bit of a directionless screw-up, and he didn't have any friends, and okay, he's got to be like, all right, now, I do need to change my approach here, and
getting fatherly advice from Chris is not a good idea, right?
Yeah, like Chris, we do see how, I mean, in spite of everything, up until the moment he tried to strangle him, he was kind of Johnny's father figure.
Yeah, because he didn't have anything
like that
else.
Was as good as it got. Like Daniel and Johnny actually have this moment where they're talking about how they both sort of found karate father figures. It's like, yeah, we actually do get a Daniel Johnny bonding moment in this show,
and they're thinking about fighting each other too. That's funny.
Yeah, well, I mean, like, but yeah, as Johnny says, except yours didn't try to kill you, and and that, but that's disappointingly short-lived. But yeah, they were thinking like they do all they have like an afternoon of bonding, and then Johnny wants to end it off with a sparring match because of Rocky 3. Like, yeah, you know, Rocky 3, where Apollo and Daniel has seen Rocky 3 too. Like they both still like, a lot of this. What they found is they both like a lot of the same stuff. Daniel's like, yeah, Rocky and Apollo. All right, one round. We'll go back into my karate studio, and then we'll get to what happens there. Everything goes down the drain. But I mean, but where I think it like goes, I mean, a little too far. As much as, okay, Johnny's saying, all right, don't just like accept life beating you down, and don't expect something to come along and correct it. People don't always say what they should. People don't always do what they should, and you have to be willing to take that on and say to yourself, I can brave this. I can take it on. That said, some of what he says does more than stray into the same old anti-PC, everyone's a pussy, who wastes time saying all this stuff. And I mean, like,
I like
which
it.
I think is getting so old by now. I mean, like, look, okay, I was alive. I mean, my childhood included the years before millennials actually took on the name millennial. The first time I saw a Justin Bieber poster, I groaned and slapped my forehead. With the rest of us, I had to listen to my little brothers watching the Disney tween queen shows that made me want to claw my eyes out. Because, had to let them watch it before we could change the channel. That said, I think I'm ready to own being a millennial. You know, like all this, I mean, I get that, okay, the whole, political correctness push, it involves a lot of dumb, inane stuff, but, I mean, all these people saying, screw that, fuck that, we need to go back to the old generation. I mean, I'm like, no, we know more than we did before, and we're trying to apply it. That is how literally every generation works. Oh, the new generation's a pussy. Literally every generation has had that said to them by the generation before. The 1940s, 50s, countries at war. We have Joe Louis, the American hero, and Rocky Marciano, the invincible boxers and stuff. The champion from the silent generation called them pussies, said that they don't that boxing wasn't used to be, because I brought up Joe Louis and Rocky Marciano, that everybody's so pampered now and they have it so much easier. So every generation thinks the next generation is pussies, and okay, this show seems to legit want to get into that notion and love on that notion a little bit. And I mean, I'm sure, for the whole, millennial backlash and stuff, some people, the people who don't think that's gotten old yet, will get into that too. I'm like, it is getting a little old for me, and I'm like, okay, I'm sorry, just let's be smarter than that now. We're not caught under the pattern that's always the case. And sorry, Gen X, you have no room to talk. We got stereotyped for being entitled pussies. You guys got stereotyped for being morons. I guess I was around for when they were still playing Meet the Deedles on TV, and that's what you guys ate up. Maybe not quite that bad, but all right. Every generation has their points you can hit them low for.
Yeah, of course.
But luckily, Johnny is a dickhead about it in the way you believe that Johnny would be a dickhead about it. Like, I mean, in spite of the fact that the show seems to be kind of on his side for that, okay, it's still sort of hands off about that. Like I said, neither he nor Daniel are totally the heroes or the villains, and everything kind of happens in a way not everything, but the essential stuff, the character development happens in the ways you would believe it would happen, and it just stays so engaging. Like, you legit, like Johnny, okay, when he gets rejected by his son, and he and right after he's about to close up his dojo because this kid's mom finds out he's been taking karate, and he got into a fight that he lost big time all at once, and she throws him out, and like Johnny comes back and he gives the speech that he was going to, I guess, give to his estranged wife and his son, and instead he gives it to her because he realizes that, okay, he has blown it with his son, but now, okay, he could still, create something really valuable with this kid. He wants to keep helping him grow, and he wants to, in turn keep working on himself as a sensei. I mean, that stuff gets pretty powerful, I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
So,
like, you really feel for Johnny. I think like that as well.